My name is James, and I am 71 years old. When people look at me now, they see a successful businessman. I own the largest regional newspaper company in 3 states. I have offices, employees, and more money than I ever dreamed of. But I wasn't always this person. I came from nothing, less than nothing. I grew up in the poorest part of the city. Our apartment had 1 room, no heat, and broken windows. My father left when I was 3 years old. I never saw him again. It was just me and my mother. My mother worked in a textile factory. She worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. She came home exhausted, her fingers bleeding from the machines. But her wages were barely enough to pay rent and buy food. When I was 7 years old, my mother got sick. She developed a lung disease from the factory dust and chemicals. She couldn't work anymore. She could barely breathe. We had no money, no food, no hope. I remember looking in our cupboard and seeing nothing, just empty shelves and a single can of beans. My mother cried that night. She thought I was asleep, but I heard her. I heard her sobbing, asking God why. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to help. I was going to find work. I was only 7 years old, but I had no choice. I walked downtown to the busy streets. I saw older boys selling newspapers on the corners. They shouted headlines, waved papers, and collected coins. I approached one of them. His name was Tommy. He was 12. "Can I sell papers too?" I asked. He looked at me and laughed. "You're too small, kid." "I'm strong," I insisted. "I need to help my mother." Something in my voice made him stop laughing. "All right," he said, "but you gotta keep up." He took me to the newspaper distributor. A gruff man named Mr. Peterson ran the operation. "How old are you?" he asked, looking down at me. 10, I lied. I was barely 4 feet tall. He didn't believe me, but he didn't care either. "You buy papers for 3 cents each. You sell them for 5 cents. You keep the difference. If you can't sell them, you still owe me." I nodded. I understood. He gave me 20 papers. I could barely carry them. I walked to a busy corner and started shouting, "Paper! Get your paper! Read all about it!" My voice was small. People walked past without looking. I stood there for 2 hours. I didn't sell a single paper. My arms hurt from holding the stack. My feet hurt from standing. I was about to give up when a man stopped. He was well dressed, carrying a briefcase. "How much?" he asked. "5 cents, sir," I said. He looked at me. Really looked at me. How old are you, son? He asked gently. 7, sir, I admitted. He bought a paper and gave me a quarter. Keep the change, he said, and stay in school. I wanted to tell him I didn't go to school anymore, but he was already walking away. That 20 cents felt like a fortune. By the end of the day, I had sold all 20 papers. I made 40 cents. I ran home as fast as I could. My mother was lying in bed coughing. Mama, look! I showed her the coins. Her eyes filled with tears. James, where did you get this? I sold newspapers, I said proudly. She pulled me close. You're too young. You should be in school. We need the money, Mama, I said. She cried, but she didn't say no. From that day on, I sold newspapers every single day. Rain or shine, winter or summer, I was on that corner. I woke up at 5 in the morning to catch the early workers. I stood on the corner until 8 at night. I learned to shout louder. I learned to smile at customers. I learned which corners were best and what times were busiest. The other newspaper boys became my friends. Tommy taught me how to spot generous customers. The ones in a hurry tip the best, he said. He was right. Every evening, I brought my earnings home to my mother. Some days I made 50 cents, some days $1. We could buy bread now, sometimes even milk and eggs. My mother's cough didn't get better, but at least she could eat. I never went back to school. I couldn't afford to. But something interesting happened. Every day, I held newspapers in my hands, and every day I looked at the words. At first, they meant nothing to me, just black marks on paper. But slowly, I started to recognize patterns. I saw the same words repeated, the, and, is, of. I asked customers what the words meant. Some ignored me, but others were kind. They told me. They helped me. A teacher named Miss Clara bought a paper from me every morning. She noticed I was looking at the words. Can you read, James? She asked one day. I shook my head, ashamed. Would you like to learn? She asked. I nodded eagerly. Every morning, she spent 10 minutes with me. She taught me letters. She taught me sounds. She taught me how words came together to make meaning. It was slow. It was hard. But I was determined. By the time I was 10 years old, I could read the headlines. By 12, I could read entire articles. Hey, the pool. I learned about the world through those pages. I read about wars, elections, inventions, and discoveries. I read about rich people and poor people. Painful stan. I read about people who started with nothing and became something. Those stories gave me hope. Years passed. I kept selling newspapers. My mother's health declined. She could no longer leave the bed. I was 16 when she died. I held her hand as she took her last breath. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. Those were her final words. I was alone, completely alone. I had no family, no money, no home. The landlord kicked me out the day after my mother died. I slept on the street. I kept selling newspapers. It was all I knew how to do. But something had changed inside me. I wasn't just selling papers anymore. I was studying them. I noticed how some articles were written well and others weren't. I noticed which headlines sold more papers. I noticed what people wanted to read. I started writing down my own observations. I had no formal education, but I had years of experience. I knew newspapers. I understood them. I lived and breathed them. When I was 25, I got a job at a printing shop. It paid more than selling papers on the corner. I learned how newspapers were printed. I learned about typesetting, layouts, and distribution. I worked there for 15 years. I saved every penny I could. I lived in a tiny room. I ate the cheapest food. I never bought anything I didn't absolutely need. By the time I was 40 years old, I had saved $3,000. It had taken me 15 years to save that much. $3,000. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start something small. I decided to start a community newsletter, just a simple 4-page paper about local news. I wrote the articles myself. I printed them at night in the shop. I distributed them for free in my neighborhood. At first, nobody cared. People threw them away. But I didn't stop. I kept printing. I kept distributing. I wrote about local businesses. I wrote about community events. I wrote about people's stories. The stories nobody else told. Slowly, people started reading. They started talking about it. Did you see the newsletter? It had a story about Mrs. Johnson's bakery. Did you read about the new park being built? Word spread. After 6 months, I had an idea. I could sell advertising space to local businesses. I went door to door, talking to shop owners. Put an ad in my newsletter. It only costs $5. Some said no, but some said yes. With that money, I could print more copies. I could distribute to more neighborhoods. The newsletter grew. After 2 years, I had 2,000 readers. After 5 years, I had 10,000. I hired my first employee, a young man who wanted to be a writer. I paid him from my own savings. Write good stories, I told him. Write stories that matter. He did. By the time I was 50 years old, my newsletter had become a real newspaper. We published twice a week. We covered local news, sports, business, and culture. People trusted us. They relied on us. Big newspapers ignored small communities. But we didn't. We told their stories. I bought a small office. I bought better printing equipment. I hired more writers, more editors. I worked 18 hours a day. I barely slept. But I was building something real. When I was 55, a major newspaper company approached me. They wanted to buy my paper. They offered me $500,000. I said no. Why? They asked. You could retire. You could live comfortably. This isn't about money. I told them. This is about giving people a voice. They didn't understand, but I didn't care. I kept growing the business. I started papers in neighboring towns. Each one focused on local communities. Each one hired local writers. Each one told local stories. By the time I was 60, I had 15 newspapers. By 65, I had 30. Now, at 71, I have 52 newspapers across 3 states. My company employs over 600 people. We reach 3 million readers every week. The business is worth millions, but I still live simply. I still live in a modest house. I still drive an old car. I don't need luxuries. I never did. What I do need is purpose. And I found it. I remember being 7 years old, standing on that corner. I remember holding newspapers with words I couldn't read. I remember going hungry. I remember watching my mother die. I remember sleeping on the street. Those memories never leave me, and I'm glad they don't. They remind me of where I came from. They remind me why I do what I do. Every year, I give scholarships to 50 kids. Kids who can't afford school. Kids who are working to help their families. Kids like I was. I pay for their education completely. I also run a program that teaches journalism to young people, especially kids from poor neighborhoods. You don't need a fancy degree, I tell them. You need curiosity. You need honesty. You need hard work. Some of my best writers never went to college. They learned on the job just like I did. People ask me what my secret to success is. There is no secret. It's simple. I never gave up. When I was 7, I could have given up. When my mother died, I could have given up. When I slept on the street, I could have given up. But I didn't. I kept going one day at a time, one newspaper at a time. I also never forgot where I came from. Success didn't make me better than anyone else. I still remember what it feels like to be invisible, to be the kid people walk past without seeing. That's why our newspapers focus on ordinary people. We tell the stories of factory workers, shop owners, teachers, nurses. We tell the stories that big papers ignore, because those stories matter. Last month, I went back to the corner where I used to sell papers. It's changed so much. The buildings are different. The people are different. But I stood there for a while, remembering. A young boy walked past, carrying a heavy backpack. He looked tired. He looked poor. He reminded me of myself. I stopped him. "Excuse me, son. Are you okay?" He looked at me suspiciously. "I'm fine." "Are you going to school?" I asked. "When I can," he said. "I work after school to help my mom." My heart broke. It was like looking at my younger self. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my business card. "Come to this address tomorrow," I said. "Ask for James." "Why?" he asked. "Because I want to help you," I said. He looked at the card, then at me. "Are you messing with me?" he asked. "No," I said. "I was you once. Now let me help." He came the next day. His name was Marcus. He was 12. He was 12. His mother was sick. He worked odd jobs after school. I gave him a job at my company, part-time, after school, paid fairly. I also enrolled him in a tutoring program. "You need to finish school," I told him. "But I need to work," he protested. "You can do both." I did. Marcus is now 16. He's thriving in school. He wants to be a journalist. "You inspired me, Mr. James," he said recently. I smiled. "You inspire me too." That's what success means to me. Not the money. Not the recognition. It's the ability to help others the way I wish someone had helped me. It's breaking the cycle of poverty. I am 71 years old now. I still go to the office every day. I still read every paper we publish. I still write sometimes. My hands are old and shaky, but my mind is sharp. I have no plans to retire. This work is my life. These newspapers are my legacy, and the people we help, they are my purpose. Sometimes I think about that 7-year-old boy on the corner, cold, hungry, scared, and I wish I could go back and tell him, "It's going to be okay. You're going to make it. You're going to build something beautiful. You're going to help thousands of people. Your suffering won't be wasted." But I can't go back. All I can do is move forward. All I can do is keep building. All I can do is help the next Marcus, and the next, and the next. Because that's what matters. I sold newspapers as a boy to survive. Now I publish newspapers to give others hope. The boy, who couldn't read, became a man who helps others find their voice. The boy who had nothing became a man who gives everything. And I am proud. Not because I'm rich, but because I never forgot where I came from. And I never stopped trying to lift others up. That is my story. From street corner to boardroom, from illiterate to publisher. But the real story isn't about me. It's about everyone who's still fighting, everyone who's standing on a corner right now, trying to survive. Everyone who's hungry but hopeful. This is for you. Keep going. Keep fighting. Your struggle today is building your strength for tomorrow. And someday you'll look back and see how far you've come. Thank you for reading my story. May we all remember that where we start doesn't determine where we finish. May we all help those who are still struggling. And may we never forget the corners where we began. Take care,